Hello everyone, I am Ben Coleman. I'm your anchor host here at the Florida Aviation Network, coming to you live and in the clear from Sun and Fun 2021. Glad that you're able to join us, and if you're not here at the Strip, you need to come on out to the field. Lakeland International Airport, a lot of stuff going on here. And I have with us today, we're very proud to have a gentleman that I've never met before. I wouldn't know him from Adam, but is Mr. Larry Kelley. Larry?
Hey, Ben. It's always good to see you. Love to be flying with you again.
But we're going to work on that. But Larry, I was trying to be cute, and it's not. But Larry and I go way back. But he has one of the most beautiful restored B-25s probably flying in the world. I'm a little biased because I do have some time in the airplane. But Larry, tell me well, first, how are you doing? I mean,
I'm doing great, but I got to tell a little story on Ben. I was hard up. We had to do an event one weekend. I didn't have a co-pilot. I knew Ben was a very proficient multi-engine pilot. So I called Ben and said, Ben, can you help me out? We'll go out, we'll do 3 takeoff and landings, get your currency seat. We did that. We did 3 takeoff and landings, the best 3 landings the airplane had seen in years. I said, okay, this will work. You remember that?
I do.
That's a true story.
The last time you told that, it was $20. What's it up to now? I don't know.
50 now.
Okay.
Inflation.
Well, you're kind, Larry, but it's a beast. It's a heavy airplane, but it's a very solid airplane. Good heavy airplane on the field stick, and but very dependable. You point it, it'll go where you point it.
It took the war to the enemy.
And what are we doing, Larry, to immortalize this airplane? What are you doing with your group up in the Maryland area?
Well, you know, for years we have tried to make the story of all the airmen who went into the air during World War II, all of which were volunteers. Mm-hmm. No one was ordered into the air, even when their losses were less than your chance of winning a coin toss. The losses, but young men lined up and went. So we try to keep alive that story. But specifically the story of the B-25, it's, this is the only combat-equipped airplane of World War II that saw duty from the beginning of the war to the end of the war in all the major conflicts of all the theaters by all the Allied air forces. So very unique combat airplane. And to try to help the public to understand what that's like, we do living history flights in the airplane where people can come and purchase rides in the airplane, go through an extensive briefing process, and then we take them out and fly the airplane. That's why it's called a living history. It's not just a ride, it is living history. Mm-hmm. So you remind people, those of you in the audience, how many of you had parents or grandparents that were in World War II? These are the icons, these were the tools. A hammer doesn't build a house, a saw don't build a house, a carpenter does. So these were the saws and the hammers of the carpenters, which were the young airmen that took these airplanes into combat in World War II, and try to tell that story. And then the second thing we do is the only place in the world that you can come and get dual instruction as a pilot. If you're multi-engine rating and have a current medical, you can get dual instruction in the B-25, get either dual instruction, a second command type rating, which takes 2 days, or you can go to full type rating, which is what you and I were just talking about, which is a 14-hour flying program. Takes about 10 days to go all the way from ground school all the way through your check ride. And we do all of that right there in Georgetown, Delaware. So those are the things we're doing. And just to point out, every time we get in this airplane, the nostalgia, to me, when we flew in the air show here on Wednesday, I climbed in the airplane, I looked over at Max Hodges, who was sitting there in the right seat, and I said, Max, just always remember, how many young men climbed in these and didn't climb out? Yeah. Okay, how many of them had 1 takeoff more than they did landings? Mm-hmm. So let's go try to tell that story. But we had, Doc White from the Doolittle raid. Mm-hmm. He was the physician that was on the raid that saved Ted Lawson by amputating his leg in China with no anesthesia. Those of you who've seen 30 Seconds Over Tokyo or read any of the books or know the history of the Doolittle raid know what an important role Doc White had. Was awarded the Silver Star. But Doc White's grandson, who is a pilot, came and went through the rating because he just wanted to know what it was like. He wanted to know what it felt like.
Well, Larry, are you learning anything more about? You're pretty well versed on the history of this airplane.
Well,
But every now and then, I'm curious of when you learn just one other little tidbit that, how often is it that you learn a little bit more than you say, I didn't know that?
you mean about the history or
Yeah.
how the airplane works?
The history.
Every day. I read voraciously. And now you get this program on Amazon, and so you download them onto your phone. So every mile that I drive, I'm listening to the audio books, and that's been a great thing to try to keep up. And more history, you just don't realize. And those that today that don't really understand what even World War II is all about should read some of this history and understand what a total commitment this was from every person in the country, not just the soldiers that were in the field, but back on the home front, where the housewives were saving their cooking grease, went into bomb manufacture, turning in their aluminum pans, all working in the factories, building the airplanes. We met a Rosie the Riveter at one of the air shows, tiny little lady. And she'd worked in the North American plant. She said every left wing that came down assembly line, she had to climb down inside the wing. She held the bucking bar. And if you don't know what a bucking bar is, that's what the big, heavy piece of metal is held on the back side of the metal, while the riveter rivets it from the outside. And so we had her and her grandkids out, put them all over the airplane and got pictures so that she could have that memory with her kids.
And she just walked up out of the blue? I mean, or did you have it coordinated?
She just walked up to us at an air show and told us she worked in the North American plant in Kansas City, and that she bucked rivets and she was the right age and she knew the story, and so she had to have been there to know what she did. And she showed us the section of the wing that she worked on, one wing after another, right down the assembly line, every day, day in and day out. And she could hardly hear. Because you know what it's like for riveting.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Particularly in a wing. Good grief. Yeah. Larry, I understand that there's a lot of coordination going on for AirVenture, and you have played a pretty major part for the World War II.
Yeah, we've done a number of things for AirVenture. In 2017, we did the 75th anniversary reenactment of the Doolittle raid, which I've had several people come up here this last couple of days talking about how much they enjoyed that. And Dennis Dunbar asked me to again try to put together B-25s to be part of. And folks, if you've never been to AirVenture, this is the year to go if you want to see some history relived. The 75th anniversary of the end of World War II obviously was last year, but no one was able to really celebrate that last year. So this year, AirVenture is going to be doing their 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. And it will probably be the largest, probably most well choreographed telling of the story of the all-out effort of World War II that you will have ever seen. So it'll be the largest, biggest, best warbird show you will ever see. It's going to be this year.
How are they capturing that, Larry? I don't know if it's going to be on the big screens or is it just, of course it's going to be recorded, but how are they going to present that live? I'm just curious how they're going to pull that off.
I don't know. I'm sure it probably will be televised live. I just don't know how, but I'm going to be up there pushing throttles for it, turning gas into noise.
Well, I might not have enough time to get up there to, I tell you, always keep me in the back of your mind for if it hits the fan, call Ben.
I remember that.
Tell me about Dick Cole.
Well, many of you know that Dick Cole was the last of the Doolittle Raiders. He was 103 years old when he passed. And still, with his famous one-liners, just shortly before he passed, he did a one-liner with his daughter and his son. But, Dick passed last spring, and right about this time. And they were not initially, the Air Force was planning a major event around not only his internment at Arlington, a Doolittle Raider recognition that was going to be done at the World War II Memorial, and then a big dinner where the final goblet would be turned. Well, all that fell apart with COVID and all the nonsense that's been going on in Washington now. The families decided to just simply bury Dick basically his local military cemetery at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. And so the interment will be of September 7th, which is Dick's birthday. It would have been his 105th birthday. And we will have a flight of 4 B-25s in a missing man formation, and then 4 C-47s. Because if you ask Dick Cole about what his major contribution was in World War II, the Doolittle raid he was just one of many volunteers doing what millions of other volunteers had done.
Nothing special?
Nothing special. Yeah. We did our job. We were told what to do, and we did it, and then he wound up hanging in a tree in China. Okay, and it was not a suicide mission, as people say. That's one thing that really bothers me when people say, well, this is a suicide mission. It wasn't.
It was planned.
Well planned, bomb Japan, land in China, refuel, Chuchao, China, refuel. The airplanes are going to be delivered to Claire Chennault and the Flying Tigers in Kunming. That was the plan. The airplanes were supposed to go to the nationalist Chinese. But of course they were spotted, and you all know the story there. But with Dick's passing was the end of the story, but the beginning of the legend. So Dick will be buried on September 7th, and I said Dick never thought that the Doolittle raid was what his contribution to World War II. His contribution was when Johnny Allison and Colonel Cochran came to him and asked him to help form the 1st Air Commandos, because he already had combat flying experience over there. After the Doolittle raid, he stayed over there for 13 months and flew the hump. He helped develop the routes over the hump. He won his 2nd Distinguished Flying Cross. He was awarded his 2nd Distinguished Flying Cross for helping develop the routes across the Himalayas, hauling supplies into the nationalist Chinese. Then he came home after 13 months, met his wife, got married 2 weeks later, and then Cochran and Allison contacted him. We need experienced pilots. You could fly C-47s, B-25s. We need them in China, and they were going to be supporting the Chindits behind Japanese lines in China. And Dick said, for the first time, someone asked me what I thought and how we could do this, and he had developed a lot of their tactics. So that's what he always thought was his greatest contribution.
And I'm sure that there's many more that we just don't know about. We never will know about it now because he's not with us. But
many people ask about the final goblet. When will the goblet be turned? I can't announce it publicly because that's for the family to do. But
Understood.
Just watch your calendars for this time next year.
Understood. And I plan on being in San Antonio because that's 3 days from I was September 4th, my birthday. So that'll be a good birthday present for Benji. Larry, tell me, Don Sealer.
Don Seiler was the original pilot of Panchito, and some people say, why do you spend your life savings? Why do you spend all of your waking time? Why do why not follow other pursuits? And then you have stories like Don's story, and then you know why you're doing this. Mid-Atlantic Air Museum's World War II weekend, I had a little white-haired man walk up to me and asked to speak to the owner, introduce myself, and he showed me a little photograph of a young 18-year-old leaning up against Panchito. I said, whoa, is that you? Now I had contact with an original crew member. He said, yeah, I was the top turret gunner and engineer in the airplane, and my identical twin brother, Bob, was the tail gunner.
Oh, we do.
So wow, now I had this contact, and he kept a detailed diary. And it's important about the diary. So he began to travel with us to a couple of events. We went to an event at Akron, Ohio, and a man walked up to us and said, does the name Don Seiler mean anything? Well, now Bill had already told me. He was the original pilot that gave it its name. So I said, did you know him? He said, well, that was my older brother. I said, is he still alive? No, he passed away way back 1984. I said, what about kids, sons? Well, he has 2 sons. They were toddlers when he died, but they're both aeronautical engineers now. And his widow, Ruth, was still alive and doing well, living in an assisted living facility up in Detroit area. And we were headed to the Cleveland Air Show. I said, wow, I got to bring Bill Miller out here to meet them. So we go to Cleveland Air Show, and they had all arranged to come out. Sorry, you choked up some trying to tell this story.
Larry, you're going to choke me up too, but that's okay.
I tell you, sitting on the tailgate of a pickup truck in the parking lot at the Cleveland Air Show, Bill Miller sitting there with his diary. Don's 2 sons sitting on either side of Ruth standing right here, and listening for an hour and a half to 2 hours with Bill telling his 2 sons and his widow what a great man Don Seiler was. No one would abort if Don was leading the mission. he was a leader, natural-born leader. I mean, at 22 years old, he was a captain and the oldest, most experienced pilot in the outfit. 22 years old. Okay, so you stand back and you do that, and you have a part of doing that. That's why we do this.
And it's not all about the money is one thing, but the reality and the thrill of being a part of history.
Yeah, just before I came over here, I actually had KT was sitting out there in a golf cart waiting on to bring me over here. He came up in a golf cart with an elderly gentleman that was a mechanic on B-25s in the Pacific in World War II. Oh boy, I'm waiting to catch up with him a little later on this evening and get his story and get him to sign the bombs, because all these old vets that we meet, we ask them to sign the bombs. They got hundreds of signatures on the bombs in the bomb bay.
Larry, all I can say is, without you and your youth and vitality on doing this mission, we wouldn't know a fraction of what we've learned about the history, primarily of the B-25 and what it has meant to us as a nation.
Well, we try to do our little bit of part. I was not in the military. I was one of those that during the Vietnam era was trying to make it through college as the first one ever in our family since the Revolutionary War to go to college. We're farmers. And so it had a lot of pressure for me to get through college. And then after college, I tried to enlist. Vietnam was down. They were kicking career officers out. So they wouldn't take me then. So I think that maybe this is a little bit about trying to pay back. The 10 years that we did the Disabled American Veterans Aviation Outreach Program, that cost me money. I went a hole doing that, but it was the right thing to do. And that's sort of my way of giving a little bit back.
Well, there's no telling how much you have really given back, but it's just always a pleasure when I hear that Larry Kelley's going to be there, or Panchito, and you have you're leaving your mark, and your crew, and you got to say something about your crew. We have a fabulous crew down here with us. We got Bob Ferguson, who's our new director of operations. Got Chrissy Hastings here, who runs our hospitality and runs our whole marketing program, the tables and the desks. Sabrina Kipp is a Southwest captain who heads up our flight training program. And that's what, I tell you what, that's what people really enjoy. Pilots that come and go through and just get this second command rating, get that B-25 type rating on the back of their pilot certificate. That's sort of good bragging rights, but they get a good dose of history while they're going through that too. And they leave the program with a whole new respect for what this airplane is. Actually, and how easy it is to fly. It's a devil to taxi, but it's easy once you get in the air. So we're in. See, who else we got? With John Doran. I mean, he's a guy. He's a MacGyver of our operation, and Rich Applebaum. We got a great crew that's down here, and these are all volunteers that spend all of their time polishing. People say, "Wow, that airplane is really beautiful. It's shiny." I'm not the one polishing it. These folks are all polishing it. Okay. These are the folks that's out there helping me do all the maintenance on the airplane. We're well over 201 maintenance hours to flight hours. People don't see what it takes to keep these airplanes flying. We spent all afternoon yesterday changing a starter. I get over here and I have a starter go bad. Wow, it's a great place to be. 600 miles away from home and a starter goes bad. So I called Tom Riley. He loans me one. I got to drive over to Titusville, get it. So we spend the afternoon installing a starter. But we got just a fabulous crew of volunteers that believe and share the mission and the dream. And they got to check their ego at the door. We don't allow egos past the door. If you're not willing to also clean the bathroom as well as be seen next to the airplane in an air show, you don't belong in our organization. But if you're willing to clean the bathroom and sweep the floor and do everything else, then you're welcome. Well, we know about clean bathrooms, don't we? Larry, that's a little side joke. We'll get into that next interview, or next time we talk with Larry. But Tom Riley taught me well, and I had marks on the back of my knuckles as taxiing in Killer Bee. And every time you touch the brakes, $25. $25.
Oh, you got away cheap.
$25.
When I was learning to fly the airplane, he made me total up $100 bill in lead right next to the magneto switch. And if I got on the brakes before he needed to, he'd just pick it up, put it in his pocket, put another one down. I bought dinner for his whole crew multiple times.
But you told me if you can taxi, if you get to the end of the runway, we'll go fly.
Yep.
And by golly, you're right.
Well, with the airplane, traditionally people have this built-in muscle memory on brakes. Brakes, to steer the airplane. Well, not on a B-25. The brakes are metal to metal, they're embedded in the wheel, and they get hot really fast. One of the CAF outfits can tell you, there's a video out there of brake fire, fire starting, they got brakes so hot. But so you have to taxi the airplane.
Rudders, brakes.
Because the rudder is in the slipstream of the prop. So your rudder, it's like trying to drive a big boat with a little rudder. So the rudder in the slipstream, differential power, and then the brake, only tiny applications. I always say it's like kissing your older sister. No longer, no harder than you have to. A little bit of brake to get the airplane to come around a corner.
Larry, we're going to leave it on that one, but there was a whole gob of information that we put out there, and I'm going to have to go back and watch this one just so I can figure out where I'm going to be.
Well, DelawareAviationMuseum.org. Real easy to remember, DelawareAviationMuseum.org. You can see a lot of information about what we do. There's a detailed video out there that Sleeping Dog Productions did for us about our flight school. A lot of information. I would love for anybody to go and take a look at that.
Larry, it's always a pleasure to see you and talk with you and catch up. And we're going to go golfing soon. I got a real nice putter I want you to see.
Yeah, you've got a fabulous putter that I'd like to try out sometime. All right, Ben.
Love you, man.
Thank you.
Take it easy, guys. We're going to sign this one off. And Ben Coleman, Florida Aviation Network, Sun and Fun 2021. See you next interview.